At 72 years old, I never thought the hardest slap I would ever feel would come from the woman I once called my daughter, right across my face, in a courthouse hallway full of strangers, judges, lawyers, and bailiffs. I was wearing the same navy blue suit I had worn to my husband's funeral 6 months earlier. My cheek burned, my ears rang, and blood trickled from the corner of my mouth onto my white blouse. My only son, Benjamin, the little boy I had raised with so much love, the boy whose scraped knees I kissed better, whose fevers I sat through all night, stood just 3 feet away from me. He did not move. He did not speak. He did not stop her. He simply looked down at his expensive shoes and adjusted his tie while his wife Victoria laughed softly like she had just won something big. 20 minutes later, that same judge stood up in the courtroom and spoke 8 words that turned my son and his wife completely white and handed me back every single thing they had been trying to steal from me while I was still mourning the love of my life. If this story touched your heart even a little, please do me a small favor: hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss another story. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I read every single one, and your messages truly warm my heart. My name is Margaret Eleanor Whitmore, but for the past 50 years, everyone has just called me Maggie. 50 years ago, I married Thomas James Whitmore, the kindest, most hardworking man I have ever known. We started Whitmore Family Homes with nothing more than a rusty old pickup truck, a borrowed drafting table, and 2 hearts full of dreams and stubborn hope. We poured concrete in pouring rain, ate cold peanut butter sandwiches on muddy job sites, slept in that truck when money was short, and somehow still managed to raise one beautiful son we named Benjamin Thomas Whitmore. Thomas used to say Benjamin had my gentle heart and his father's strong chin. I believed that combination would carry him far in life. I never imagined it would one day let him stand silent while his wife tried to destroy his own mother. Thomas passed away 6 months ago, right under the big old oak tree in our backyard. We were sitting together on the porch swing, watching the autumn leaves turn gold. He reached for my hand, squeezed it, gently looked into my eyes with that same clear blue gaze I had fallen in love with in 1973, and whispered, "Maggie girl, when the storm comes, remember, the oak always stands tallest after the wind has passed." Then his hand went slack, his eyes closed, and just like that, the strongest man I ever knew was gone forever. Massive heart attack, the doctor said. Just like that, 50 years of building a life together ended with me sitting alone, holding an empty hand and a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The trouble began the very next week at the reading of Thomas' will. Benjamin and Victoria sat across the wide oak table from me in the lawyer's office, dressed in perfect black mourning clothes, but their eyes kept sliding to the numbers on the page. The lawyer cleared his throat and read the line that changed everything forever. "To my beloved wife, Margaret Eleanor Whitmore, I bequeath 100% ownership and full control of Whitmore Family Homes, all real estate, holdings, investment accounts, and liquid assets. To my son, Benjamin, a generous monthly allowance and my endless love until such time as he proves himself ready for greater responsibility." Victoria teacup stopped halfway to her lips. Benjamin turned the color of spoiled milk. That night, the whispers started, and they never really stopped. At first, it was small things designed to make me doubt my own mind. My reading glasses would disappear from the nightstand, and only to turn up inside the refrigerator. Important company folders vanished from Thomas' desk drawer. Tax documents suddenly could not be found anywhere. Victoria would come over for afternoon tea, pat my hand with fake concern, and say, "Mom, you really should not be handling all these big decisions alone. You seem to be forgetting things. It is not safe anymore." Benjamin stopped bringing the grandchildren on Sunday afternoons like he used to. Old friends quit calling because Victoria told them I was too frail for company. Slowly, carefully, deliberately, they built a picture of a poor, confused, grieving widow who could no longer be trusted with her own fortune. Then came the certified letter from the county court. My own son had filed papers asking the judge to declare me mentally incompetent and to appoint Victoria as my legal guardian and trustee of every penny Thomas and I had earned in 50 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice. The hearing was scheduled for the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I put on the navy suit I had worn to Thomas' retirement party, pinned on the pearl brooch he gave me for our 40th anniversary, dabbed a little rose water behind my ears, the way he always loved, and drove myself to that courthouse with my head held high and my heart quietly breaking inside my chest. The hallways smelled of floor wax and burnt coffee. The judge, a kind-eyed woman named Judge Harriet Morrison, called a 15-minute recess to review some medical reports I later discovered had been carefully changed by a Dr. Victoria had paid very well. That is when Victoria found me leaning against the cold marble wall, trying to steady my shaking hands. She was wearing a camel haircoat that cost more than most people make in 6 months. She stepped close enough for me to smell her expensive rose perfume and said through perfectly painted lips, "Sign the papers today, Maggie, and we will find you a lovely assisted living home with ocean views and kind nurses. Keep fighting, and we will make sure the place has locked doors and bars on the windows." I looked her straight in the eye and answered softly, "Victoria, I held you when you had chicken pox. I paid for your wedding dress. I taught you how to make Thomas' favorite apple pie with the lattice crust. Is this truly how you repay love and kindness?" She gave me the coldest smile I have ever seen on another human being, and then she slapped me open hand full force across the face of a 72-year-old widow in front of 30 strangers. My ears rang like church bells. Blood trickled from my lip onto my white blouse. Benjamin stood 3 feet away. He looked at his shoes. He adjusted his cufflinks. He said nothing at all. A young female bailiff rushed over with tissues. "Mom, that was felony assault on a senior citizen. Say the word, and she is in handcuffs right now." I dabbed my lip, looked at my son's back as he guided his wife away like she was the injured party, and felt something ancient and fierce wake up deep inside my chest. Thomas' voice came back clear as the day we got married. "Maggie girl, a Whitmore only stays down long enough to plant new roots." I straightened my shoulders, wiped the blood away, lifted my chin, and walked back into that courtroom, ready for whatever came next. The recess ended. Victoria wore a triumphant little smirk. Benjamin still refused to meet my eyes. Then the heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. A breathless clerk hurried down the aisle holding a thick envelope sealed with crimson judicial wax. "Your Honor, emergency courier from the State Supreme Judicial Council, marked urgent for Whitmore versus Whitmore." Judge Morrison sliced it open. "Read once, read again," then slowly rose to her feet. The entire room went perfectly still. "Mrs. Margaret Eleanor Whitmore," the judge said, voice thick with respect, "will you please step into my chambers immediately?" "Victoria, shut up. This is absurd. What is this nonsense?" The judge fixed her with a stare that could freeze fire. "Because, Mrs. Whitmore, it appears the woman you just assaulted in my hallway still holds active special court status from many years ago. State law is crystal clear. No local court can question her competence or freeze her assets without full federal review. This hearing is dismissed effective immediately. Case closed." I was as stunned as everyone else. I had served as an auxiliary judge for 13 years when Benjamin was small. I resigned when motherhood needed me full-time. Thomas, in his quiet, protective way, had renewed my special status every single year, paying the fees, filing the paperwork, never telling a soul. He knew one day his Maggie might need to stand tall again. Victoria was escorted out screaming. Benjamin looked like someone had punched him in the soul, but the real storm was only beginning. That night, I came home to a house that suddenly did not feel empty anymore. I poured a small glass of sherry, the same brand Thomas and I shared on our wedding night, and sat in his favorite leather chair. His last words echoed again: when the storm comes, the oak stands tallest after the wind. I walked to the big oil painting of the oak tree above the fireplace, turned it around, and found a small brass key taped to the back with a note in Thomas' handwriting: Oak Legacy Trust, root cellar safe when the storm comes. Down in the root cellar behind shelves of home-made peach preserves and dill pickles was a fireproof safe I had never opened. The key turned smooth as silk. Inside lay a thick leather binder titled The Oak Legacy Trust. 5 years earlier, while Benjamin and Victoria were busy buying sports cars and vacation homes, Thomas had quietly transferred every controlling share, every voting right, every liquid reserve into this unbreakable trust. Sole trustee Margaret Eleanor Whitmore. Everything they were fighting for had been beyond their reach for half a decade. Tucked inside was a letter in Thomas' beautiful handwriting: My dearest Maggie, if you are reading this, the wolves have come. I pray our son is not among them, but weakness makes good men follow bad women sometimes. This trust is not punishment, it is protection for what we built, and one day, God willing, for Benjamin, when he finds his way back. Mercy is the hardest kind of strength. When the time is right, call Captain Daniel Harrington in Portland. He served with me years ago. He has been waiting for your call since 2018. I love you bigger than the sky, Thomas. I cried so hard I nearly dropped the letter. My husband had seen this betrayal coming and built me a fortress in complete secret. I called Captain Harrington the next morning. He answered on the first ring. Mrs. Whitmore, Thomas said you would be the strongest woman he ever knew. How can I help you bury the wolves? For the next 8 weeks, I played the defeated widow perfectly. I let Victoria parade around town, telling everyone she had finally put Mom in her place. I signed every meaningless document they pushed under my nose, knowing the real assets were locked away safe. They scheduled an emergency shareholders meeting to sell the company to corporate raiders who planned to strip it bare. The morning of the meeting, I wore my Sunday best midnight blue silk suit, the triple strand pearls Thomas gave me for our 40th anniversary, white gloves, and carried the Oak Legacy binder under my arm like the Bible itself. Security tried to stop me at the front door. Old Mr. Jenkins, who started with Thomas in 1975, smiled and said, "They are all up on the 22nd floor. Mrs. Whitmore, fixing to carve up your company elevator. Is this way, Mom?" I walked into that glass-walled boardroom like I owned the place because I did. 28 faces turned. Victoria was standing at the head of the table, explaining how they would liquidate everything by Christmas. Benjamin dropped his expensive pen. It rolled across the table and fell off the edge. I laid the Oak Legacy binder down with a thud that sounded like Judgment Day. Meeting adjourned, I said calmly. Every share, every vote, every dollar you thought you controlled belongs to the Oak Legacy Trust, established 5 years ago. I am the sole trustee. Every signature either of you put on paper in the last 8 months is legally worthless. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. You may go. The lead buyer's attorney went ghost white, flipped through the pages, and started packing his briefcase so fast he knocked over 3 water glasses. Victoria screamed. Benjamin put his head in his hands and cried like the little boy who once scraped his knee and ran to Mommy for a band-aid. Security escorted them out. This time, Victoria did the screaming. Benjamin did the walking in shame. The company was safe. Thomas' 50 years of blood, sweat, and tears were safe. But my son was still lost. The forensic audit took 5 months. It uncovered years of theft, fake contracts, offshore accounts, luxury vacations written off as business expenses. Victoria was the mastermind. Benjamin had known and signed every false invoice. The prosecutor called me personally. "Mrs. Whitmore, we have enough to put them both away for 15 to 25 years. Do we have your blessing?" I sat on the porch swing where Thomas and I watched fireflies for 50 summers. I could still feel his arm around my shoulders. I thought of his letter. Mercy is the hardest kind of strength. Charge Victoria with everything you have, I told him. For Benjamin, if he returns every penny, testifies fully, and completes 5,000 hours of community service with senior citizens who have been victims of financial abuse, I will not ask for prison time. Victoria fought like a cornered animal. She blamed Benjamin and blamed me, blamed the auditors. The jury took less than 90 minutes. 11 years in federal prison for fraud, elder financial abuse, and felony assault on a senior. Benjamin lost his cars, his country club membership, his reputation, everything except his freedom and the clothes on his back. For 21 long months, I heard nothing from him. Then one cold, rainy November afternoon, the doorbell rang. A thin, gray-haired man stood on my porch, soaked to the skin, holding a dripping manila envelope. He did not have to speak. I knew my son. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a letter Thomas had written 27 years earlier and hidden in Benjamin. An old fishing tackle box. My dear son, if you ever lose your way, remember, real strength is not taking, it is protecting. Real wealth is not money, it is character. And real home is always waiting with your mother. Go to her, she will show you the way back. I love you, Dad. Benjamin's shoulders shook with silent sobs. I opened the door wide. Come in, out of the rain, sweetheart, you will catch your death. We sat at the same kitchen table where I used to help him with 4th grade spelling words. We drank hot tea with honey and talked about everything except the past 2 years. We talked about Thomas, we talked about the oak tree, we talked about forgiveness and second chances. Trust is like the crystal vase Thomas' mother gave us on our wedding day. Once shattered, you can glue it back together, but the cracks remain. That is all right, because that is where the light shines through. Today, Benjamin runs the charitable arm of the Oak Legacy Trust. He delivers meals to widows who are afraid of losing their homes. He sits with frightened old men and helps them fill out forms so no one can ever steal from them again. He sees every day what greed does to families. It has made him the man his father always prayed he would become. Some evenings we sit together on that same old porch swing. The fireflies come back every summer, just like Thomas promised they would. And when the wind moves through the leaves of the great oak tree, I swear on everything holy, I can hear my husband whisper, "Well done, Maggie girl. Our boy is finally home." If this story made you feel something deep in your heart, or reminded you of someone you know, please share it with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. And one last thing, don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so we can keep sharing these silent heart stories together every week. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.